The president wanted to repaint the palace and requested cost estimates from several contractors, both local and international. 3 contractors submitted their bids. The Chinese contractor estimated for $3 billion, the European contractor proposed for $7 billion, and the local contractor gave a staggering quote of $10 billion. Curious, the president asked the Chinese contractor, "Why is your estimate of $3 billion? Can you break it down?" The Chinese contractor calmly replied, $1 billion for paint, or $1 billion for labor, and $1 billion for profit. The president then turned to the European contractor. "What about you? Why is your estimate of $7 billion? The European contractor explained, $3 billion for paint, $2 billion for labor, and $2 billion for profit. Finally, the president looked at the local contractor with a raised eyebrow. "You're asking for up $10 billion. Can you explain the breakdown?" The local contractor smiled and said, "Well, sir, $4 billion for you, $3 billion for me, and the remaining of $3 billion to pay the Chinese contractor to do the actual work." Without hesitation, the local contractor won the bid. A little girl said to her mother, "Mom, yesterday when you were away for work out of town, a strange woman came to our house to visit Dad." The mother replied, "Oh, really? Well, tell me more about it when your dad gets home." They waited until the father returned. When he arrived, the mother said to her daughter, "Now, sweetie, please tell me what you saw about Dad and that strange woman." The father tried to speak and explain, but the mother stopped him and said, "Quiet. I'll talk to my lawyer tomorrow morning." Then the mother urged her daughter to continue her story. "Dad told me to stay in the living room while they went upstairs, but I followed them. I saw them hugging and kissing, and then they went into the bedroom. I quietly opened the door to see what was happening." "What did you see, sweetie?" asked the mother. "I saw them jump onto the bed." "And then what happened?" asked the mother angrily, glaring at her husband. The little girl continued, "They did exactly what you do with Uncle John." Little Johnny was a mischievous student who sat at the back of the class. During a math lesson, while the teacher was explaining, Johnny was clearly not paying attention. When the teacher called his name, Johnny responded, "Yes, ma'am." The teacher then asked, "If there are 3 ducks on a fence and you shoot one with a gun, how many ducks are left?" Johnny replied, "Well, ma'am, if I shoot one, the loud gunshot will scare the others away, so there won't be any left." The teacher shook her head and said, "No, Johnny, the correct answer is 2. If you shoot one, that means 2 remain. But I like the way you think." Not wanting to lose, Johnny asked the teacher a question in return. "All right, ma'am, I have a question for you." 3 women walk out of an ice cream shop. One is biting her ice cream, one is licking it, and one is sucking on it. Which one do you think is married? The teacher was a bit surprised by the question. She thought for a moment and then answered, It must be the one licking the ice cream." Johnny grinned and said, "No, ma'am. The one who's married is the one wearing a wedding ring." "But I like the way you think." 3 men, a philosopher, a mathematician, and a fool, were in a car accident. When they regained consciousness, they found themselves standing at the gates of heaven. The gatekeeping angel said, "Heaven is full. You may only enter if you can ask me a question that I cannot answer. If I can answer it, you'll be sent to hell." The philosopher stepped forward first and said, "Tell me everything you know about Aristotle." With a snap of the angel's fingers, a massive stack of papers appeared, containing every detail about Aristotle. The philosopher read through them and admitted they were all correct. As a result, he was sent to hell. Next, the mathematician took his turn. "Give me the most complex equation ever created." Once again, with a snap of the angel's fingers, a pile of papers appeared filled with incredibly intricate formulas. The mathematician examined them and nodded in agreement. He too was sent to hell. Finally, it was the fool's turn. He said, "Bring me a chair." After receiving the chair, he asked for 7 holes to be drilled into the seat. Then he sat down. Farted stood up and asked, "From which hole did my fart come out?" The angel inspected the chair carefully and replied, "The 3rd hole." "Wrong!" the fool said with a grin. "It came out of my butt." And so the fool was granted entry into heaven. A blonde-haired girl was often teased at school because her classmates thought she was dumb. One day, after coming home from school, she found her mother, who was also blonde, cooking in the kitchen. "Mom, everyone makes fun of me every day. They say I'm stupid," the girl said sadly. Her mother gave her a gentle smile and said, "Don't listen to them, sweetheart. You're not stupid. They only say that because you're blonde." The girl frowned in confusion. "But why, Mom? Why do people think blondes are dumb?" Her mother thought for a moment, then said, "Come here, let me show you something." She then quietly knocked on the wooden table a few times. The girl immediately turned toward the door and said, "Mom, did you hear that? I think someone's knocking." Her mother chuckled, patted her on the head, and said, "Sweetheart, you may not be the sharpest, but it's not because you're blonde. There are plenty of geniuses in the world who are blonde, too." The girl smiled in relief. "Oh, okay. Thanks, Mom. I feel better now." She hugged her mother tightly. Her mother hugged her back and said, "I'm glad, sweetheart. Now, can you watch the food for a bit? I need to go answer the door." A taxi driver had been taking the same little boy to school every day. "You're the best taxi driver ever," the boy would always say. "And you're the best passenger," the driver would reply with a smile. One afternoon, the taxi driver arrived to pick the boy up from school. As soon as the boy got in the car, he started crying. "What's wrong?" the driver asked. Through his tears, the boy said, "Today, all my friends' dads came to school, but I don't have a dad." The taxi driver gently pulled him into a hug. "Don't worry, kid. Everything's gonna be okay. Are you hungry?" The boy nodded, and they went to get something to eat together. After their meal, they returned to the car. But the driver suddenly realized he had left his keys on the restaurant table. "Wait here for a second, okay?" he said before rushing back inside. As the boy sat alone in the car, he noticed a photo tucked in the dashboard. It was a picture of the taxi driver with a woman. When the driver returned, the boy held up the photo and asked, "Who is this?" The driver looked at it and sighed. "That's my ex-wife. She left me and took my son with her when he was just 1 year old." The boy's eyes widened in shock. "But yeah, that's my mom." The driver froze. His eyes filled with tears as he looked at the boy. Without hesitation, he pulled him into a tight hug and whispered, "I finally found you, son." An 80-year-old man was getting ready for bed when he went to close his bedroom window. As he looked outside, he saw 3 men breaking into his garage. Panicked, he immediately called the police. "You need to get here fast. There are 3 burglars trying to break into my garage." The dispatcher asked, "Sir, is your garage detached from your house?" "Yes," the old man replied. "They're breaking in right now and stealing my stuff." The dispatcher sighed. "I'm sorry, sir, but all our officers are busy at the moment. Just lock your doors and stay inside." Frustrated, the old man hung up. A minute later, he called the police again. "Hi, I just called about the burglars breaking into my garage." "Don't worry about it anymore. I shot them all." Then he hung up. 5 minutes later, 7 police cars, a SWAT team, paramedics, and an ambulance swarmed his property and immediately arrested the burglars. One of the officers turned to the old man and said, "I thought you said you shot them?" The old man smirked and replied, "I thought you said no one was available."